If you are ready, let me tell you a story. One that begins in a quiet London nursery and drifts far beyond rooftops, stars, and reason itself. It is a story about childhood, about flight, and about a boy who refused to grow up. Once upon a time, in a tall house near Kensington Gardens, lived the Darling family. Mr. and Mrs. Darling were loving but busy people, and their 3 children, Wendy, John, and Michael, shared a nursery at the top of the house. At night, the nursery was a place of shadows and whispers, where curtains fluttered like sails and toys seemed to listen. Wendy was the eldest. She was sensible, kind, and fond of stories. Every evening she tucked John and Michael into bed and told them tales of pirates, brave boys, and faraway islands where adventure waited just beyond the horizon. John liked rules and numbers and pretending he was a serious explorer. Michael, small and round and full of trust, believed everything. Their faithful nurse was Nana, a large Newfoundland dog with a gentle heart and excellent judgment. Nana kept the nursery tidy, watched over the children at night, and often seemed wiser than the adults downstairs. Now, Mrs. Darling had noticed something odd. Each morning, the children spoke of a boy who visited the nursery at night, a boy who could fly and never grew older. Mrs. Darling smiled at these stories, but in her heart she felt a flutter of unease, as if imagination were pressing a little too firmly against reality. One evening, after Mr. and Mrs. Darling went out, Nana was temporarily sent downstairs, an unfortunate decision as it turned out. The nursery lay quiet, bathed in moonlight, when suddenly the window flew open. In darted a small figure, a boy no taller than Wendy, with bright eyes, tousled hair, and a grin full of mischief. He wore leaves and shadows as clothes, and moved as lightly as a thought. This was Peter Pan. He had come searching for something he had lost, his shadow. Peter hopped about the room, trying to catch it, muttering angrily as it slipped away from him like a living thing. At last, Wendy woke and sat up in bed, watching him without fear. "You're Peter Pan," she said calmly. Peter looked startled. "How do you know?" "You come to the window," Wendy replied. "I hear you telling stories to the stars." Peter puffed up proudly. "I'm very clever, you know." At that moment, a tiny light flashed near the bed, flitting angrily through the air. It was Tinker Bell, a fairy no bigger than Wendy's hand, glowing and sharp-tempered, speaking in the chiming language of bells. Peter complained that he couldn't fix his shadow. Wendy, practical and kind, fetched a needle and thread. Very carefully, she sewed the shadow back onto Peter's feet. Peter was delighted. "Now I'm whole again," he cried, dancing about. "Wendy, you're wonderful." And then, with the casual confidence of someone used to being obeyed, Peter asked, "Will you come with me?" "Where?" Wendy asked. "To Neverland," Peter said, "where there are pirates and Indians and mermaids, and no one ever grows up." Wendy hesitated, but Peter sprinkled fairy dust over her shoulders. "Think happy thoughts," he said, and suddenly she was floating. John and Michael woke to see Wendy rising into the air. They shouted in excitement, and before reason could catch up, Peter sprinkled fairy dust on them too. Up they flew, out the open window, over the sleeping city of London. Rooftops passed beneath their feet. The Thames glimmered like a ribbon of silver. Stars brushed their cheeks. Second star to the right, and straight on till morning. At dawn, they landed on an island shaped like a dream, Neverland. Neverland was many places at once: dark forests where lost boys played, a pirate ship anchored in a lagoon, villages of proud warriors, coral reefs where mermaids basked in the sun, and above it all, the sense that time itself had forgotten how to move forward. Peter led the children to an underground home where the lost boys lived, boys who had fallen out of prams and been forgotten. They cheered when Peter returned. Wendy was declared their mother at once, and though she laughed, she found herself mending clothes, telling bedtime stories, and tucking them in, just as she had at home. Peter, however, never stayed still. He darted through the trees, laughed in battle, and crowed when admired. He lived for adventure, and danger followed him like a shadow. For in Neverland lived Peter's greatest enemy, Captain Hook. Captain James Hatterley Hook was a pirate of terrible elegance, with long dark curls, a velvet coat, and a silver hook where his left hand should have been. That hook had been taken by a crocodile, one that had swallowed a ticking clock, and ever since, Hook lived in terror of hearing that ticking sound. Hook hated Peter Pan with a burning hatred. He had cut off his hand, fed it to the crocodile, and then laughed. From that day on, revenge was all Hook's dream. Hook plodded endlessly aboard his ship, the Jolly Roger, surrounded by his crew of rough pirates. When he learned that Wendy had come to Neverland, he saw his chance. Peter and the Lost Boys fought pirates daily, winning with laughter and daring. Wendy worried. She saw how easily Peter mocked danger, how little he understood fear or loss. One night, Hook captured the Lost Boys when Peter was away. Wendy was taken too. They were brought aboard the Jolly Roger and tied up. Hook offered a choice: Wendy become a pirate or walk the plank. Wendy stood tall. "I will never belong to you," she said. Just as Hook raised his hook in fury, a sound echoed across the deck. Tick, tock. The crocodile was near. In the confusion, Peter burst aboard the ship, crowing triumphantly. He freed Wendy and the Lost Boys, and a great battle followed, swords flashing, pirates tumbling into the sea. At last, Peter faced Hook alone. They fought across the deck, Peter light and quick, Hook fierce and desperate. When Hook slipped, Peter gave him no mercy. The pirate fell into the sea, screaming, chased by the ticking crocodile. Neverland was safe, at least for now. But something had changed. Wendy began to feel a tug in her heart. She missed her parents. She missed growing up. She spoke to Peter. "Come home with us," she begged. "You can be my brother." Peter laughed. "I don't want to grow up." "But you could still have adventures," Wendy said softly. Peter shook his head. "I want to stay a boy forever." And Wendy understood. Peter could never leave Neverland, because Neverland was not a place, it was who he was. So Wendy, John, and Michael flew back to London, carrying fairy dust and memories. Mrs. Darling had never closed the nursery window. She waited every night, hoping. When the children returned, she wept with joy and held them close. Life went on. School lessons returned. Time moved forward. Years passed. Wendy grew up. John and Michael grew up too. The nursery changed. But sometimes, late at night, Wendy would hear a tapping at the window. She would wake to see Peter Pan standing there, unchanged, smiling. He came for stories. He came for memories. And one night, he came for Wendy's daughter, because Peter Pan never grew up. And so long as children dreamed, so long as they believed in fairy dust and happy thoughts, Peter Pan would always be there, laughing, flying, and forever young. Thank you all for listening to the story. Please support me with a like and a subscribe. Wishing you all good luck in life.